What up, Savage? It's CJ here, and today I want to talk to you about some sports nutrition hierarchy. What I mean by that is basically an order of importance, what we really need to be focusing on so that we don't get lost in the weeds. You've heard the term miss the forest for the trees, and that's definitely relevant here in the nutrition world. Essentially, a lot of people are caught up in things like, food quality, micronutrients, how many times a day they're eating, what supplements they're taking, and they're really missing some core principles that they should be building on before even getting to these type of questions or addressing these. So in this video, I'm going to talk about what I think to be an incredibly important concept that I have seen success with over and over again with clients and myself, and it's essentially going to be a pyramid or a hierarchy of things that you need to address before getting to the next layer. All right, so let's get this out of the way. This is not an original concept. I am not saying that I came up with this myself. As a matter of fact, I hijacked this idea from an incredibly smart person in the industry, an innovator really, somebody that's been leading the charge in a lot of like the new age research whenever it comes to sports nutrition and hypertrophy studies and other things, and that's Eric Helms. If you guys don't know who Eric Helms is, he's also a coach with 3D Muscle Journey, 3DMJ. You guys are welcome to look him up. As a matter of fact, I think a good friend of ours worked with him recently on her show prep in the Naturally Fit Federation, so I think that was really cool. But he lays out a pyramid that I think is a very good structure that we can all essentially go by. Now look, this is not super detailed or anything, okay? So, again, sometimes the devil's in the details, but this at least gives us a framework that I think we can compartmentalize how we move forward on our diets. And this is something, again, that I use with each and every one of my clients. Now, the first layer of this is going to be adherence. Now, let's talk about adherence really fast. Adherence is essentially getting into the mindset of a client or somebody going on, some sort of a transformation. If they're doing some sort of body recomp of any kind, muscle building, it's fat loss, whatever, you really first have to address what is realistic. What is this person's preferences? What is their schedule like? What are the things that are already, before we even get started, going to get in the way before we even start implementing any sort of principles? Now, used to, I didn't have this step on there, and I think it was a good additive because at the end of the day, there are lots of variations of diet protocols that are going to work, but the one that truly seems to be, the rock star is the one that you can follow. So if somebody asks, what kind of diet should I do? It should be the one that you can follow, and that's where adherence is going to come into play. The next layer of this is going to be calories. Now, I know some of you guys might be the anti-calories in and calories out, but the fact of the matter is that to this day, there's really no suggestion in any sort of scientific literature that calories in and calories out, for the most part, is refuted. Now, there's a lot of confusion around it. There are some people that really misunderstand adaptation of the metabolism to, some sort of, it doesn't matter how much energy I take in, and that's just not the case. No matter what concept we're looking at, okay, the overall amount of energy that you're consuming collectively has to play a role. So whether or not you are in a net positive or you're in a net negative is really going to be, ultimately more important than anything above that. Okay, so making sure you can follow your diet protocol, and then how much energy are you actually consuming total, so that you have, again, a meter. From there, we're going to get into what makes up those calories, and the next layer is macronutrients. So macronutrients, you've heard of macros, that's essentially energy yielding nutrients, and typically that's in the form of fats, carbs, and protein. We could lump in alcohol and maybe ketones possibly in there, but essentially the three main ones that we track, as you know, if you're following MyFitnessPal or something like that, is fat, carbs, and protein. And each one of these macronutrients are going to provide a certain unit of energy per gram. Fat's going to contribute 9 calories per gram, while carbohydrates and protein are actually going to contribute 4 calories per gram. Now, we want to address this next, and the reason it doesn't actually get an importance above calories is because at the end of the day, if you were to consume low enough calories, regardless of the macro breakdown, there is enough research to suggest that you would lose weight just fine. Now, keep in mind, again, the devil's in the details. There are some things like the thermogenic effect of food, or the way an individual processes something more efficiently or not. I mean, I'm not saying that the overall net calories might not be affected by what carbohydrate or what fat or what protein ratios you're having. With that said, at the end of the day, if we were to take two groups and they were both following 2,000 calories and we were able to know that that was a usable amount of 2,000 calories, whether or not that was all carbohydrates or fats or proteins, it's reasonable to suggest that both groups would be seeing progress. So calories have to be the most important. But next, with the macros, where they do play a role is essentially this is going to fill in the little gaps of progress. So for instance, are you getting enough protein for somebody that's trying to actually build muscle, right? We need a net positive or a nitrogen positive environment if we want to actually, be seeing muscle development goals, if we want to see muscle hypertrophy. If you're an endurance athlete or something like that, are you getting enough carbohydrates? All of these things start to play a role in this. And there's also some individualization. I mean, each different person might actually respond to something different. This also could trickle down to adherence eventually. I mean, you might be on your diet and realize that just for adherence sake, it's better to have a certain macro ratio or another. But again, kind of recapping, we've got adherence first, we've got calories, and then we have macronutrients, your fat, carbs, and your protein. The next in line from there, and I know this is going to sound backwards, so I'm going to get hell from all the hipsters out there, but essentially this is going to be where micronutrients is going to live. So micronutrients are non-energy yielding nutrients in the form of vitamins and minerals. Now look, I did not say food quality doesn't matter. I did not say that vitamins and minerals don't matter. It fucking does, okay? And you can take that however far you want. I mean, there's a lot of people that have some strong ideology attached to this kind of stuff. The fact is though, that they do not precede macronutrients, because as far as we can tell, if somebody is collectively in an chronically energy positive state, if they are overeating in any way, regardless if they're getting a lot of micronutrients in there, this is the most associated with negative health side effects. And so seeing results, both kind of superficial results, whether it's fat loss or muscle gain, macronutrients, a bigger hitter than micro. Not saying micros don't play a role. It's just that typically if we address macros first, which again is technically should be considered more important. I mean, it has a more blunt response. But also we find that this is where micros start to fill in the gaps. I mean, basically if you're addressing enough calories, you're hitting enough of each one of the macronutrients, you'll find that your micronutrients start to kind of come together. Now, not always. I'm not saying that you're not going to have holes. For instance, I think Lindsay on her show prep recently had calcium was low. A lot of people magnesium. We see vitamin D is something that we have to address. So there are definitely micronutrient things that we need to look at, but before we get to that, we got to look at the big picture. All right, so we've got adherence, we've got calories, we've got macronutrients, then we've got micronutrients. Above that, we've got meal timing and spacing. Okay, so here is where the intermittent fasters come in. This is where the anabolic window stuff, this is eating 10 times a day, eating 3 times a day. This is where you're going to be addressing, when you're actually eating throughout the day. I'm not here giving you guys recommendations if you're noticing this, right? Like, I'm not telling you how much protein to consume. I'm not telling you, I'm not going to tell you how often to eat or what supplements to take. But I do want to point out that meal timing, if you'll notice, is literally second to last on our hierarchy. So that means that most of you guys out there that, are just getting started is one of the last things that you need to worry about. You have so many other big things to worry about. From meal timing and spacing, the next up, the last one, the peak on our pyramid is going to be supplementation. So now we're talking about sports supplements. Now this could be a supplement, which is supplementing an already healthy diet, or it could be an ergogenic aid. So an ergogenic aid would be something that actually is giving you something above and beyond what it is that you're actually going to get naturally. So for instance, caffeine would be an ergogenic aid, whereas whey protein would be a supplement. Now again, typically when we're talking about supplements at the top of this, we are basically saying it in the fashion of you don't need to worry about your supplement protein powder, for instance, until you've even come close to actually hitting, your macro requirements. You should be getting that from food if possible, or your already healthy diet. Same thing with micronutrients. You should be attempting to get that from micronutrients and not necessarily leaning on, say, fiber supplements or, your vitamins and minerals, things like that. Anyway, hopefully this was helpful, guys. I just wanted to kind of lay this out. Again, I want to make this very clear. There's a researcher much smarter than me that actually put this concept out there, and I just think it's a really good framework. Instead of us reinventing the wheel, I think we tip our hat to Eric Helms and say, hey, this is an amazing, again, framework for you guys to follow, and I think for us to implement when we're going forward with nutrition. So that's it. Hopefully you guys stick around and you're liking what we're doing here. We're going to be keeping this going. We'll talk to you later. Bye.